Country music. Country music tells a story. There's harmony. There's melody. Oh, yeah. George Strait. All right, so the show, we call it The Business of Life here on KHTS AM 1220. Download the app. It's a great app, and it's a great station in America, one of the leading digital stations, so you can listen to us online at hometownstation.com, hometownstation.com, or on your smartphone. Just download the app. Just go to the App Store, type in KHTS AM 1220, it'll pop up. So that first segment, I'm going to look into this virtual world. Rich Hamlins and I are going to try to figure out how to make millions doing this. But in the meantime, you write books. And I wanted to have you back because this incident the other day at West Ranch High School where these two kids get into a fight. One of the kids apparently got asked to leave the school. I don't want to get into it. But bullying is a horrible thing. I don't know why. You've researched this, haven't you, Rich Samuels?
Up to a point, yeah.
Up to a point. So you have this trilogy, 3 books. My Life, I love this one. My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain. If you're a parent, first of all, how did they buy these books?
You can find them on Amazon and a lot of other digital online sites.
And what do they type in? Rich Samuels? Or
they could type Rich Samuels, or they could type My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain.
What if they typed in bullying? Would you come up?
I believe so, but there's a lot of books on bullying, so it might be harder
are there?
that way. Yeah, if I type Rich Samuels, Samuels, it'll probably come up. The series is called Alexander Adventures, so that's another way to search for it.
My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain, book number 1. My Epic Life.
It's book number 3.
And Own the Scrawny. Great titles. I mean, you're a creative man. But why, you're an older gentleman, why did you write these books? Were you bullied as a young person?
You know, what these books are about is perception. That the humor and the underlying theme about this is that Alexander's troubles really don't relate so much to being bullied, but to his perception that bullying might be around the corner. So he creates a life in which he avoids trouble. And avoiding trouble and fear can control your life and lead you into trouble.
Wow.
Which is
and most of us live in some form of fear. I mean, and 99% of it is just make-believe, like the boogeyman under the bed, which I still believe in.
Exactly.
Right. I have a nightlife in our room. I know the boogeyman's there. I don't know when he's coming. But.
I know. I've been avoiding him for a while.
So how do you sit down? I mean, you're such a smart guy. You could have wrote a book on anything. But why bullying? Why this story about Alexander? Was something must have triggered you to do this?
Sure. I mean, his basic fear, I was very similar in certain ways to Alexander when I was in junior high, now middle school.
Okay.
In that I was always worried that something was going to happen. I avoided certain situations. If I thought a kid was a threat to me, I'd avoid my locker, for a semester.
Got it.
So I built on that. But then when you get older, you start to see sort of the, illogic of that.
So you had a lot of anxiety as a young person.
I guess so.
Yeah, I did too. I did too. And when you're 12, 13, 14, 15, you don't know what it is. And
that's what this is about. It's about anxiety and dealing with anxiety and learning to be comfortable in your own skin.
Wow.
And he grows in these 3 books from being a kid scared of everything to a kid who's actually able to stand up for kids who are actually being bullied and help them. So there's a whole, story arc in terms of his really learning to grow up and be his own man.
Have you researched why people bully? Why would a kid who's 14 or 15 or 16, why would he want to bully somebody else?
Well, a lot of it relates to insecurity. A lot of it relates to...
So the bully is the one that's really the most insecure.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to prove themselves.
Right.
I mean, these stories are always very complicated, and it's hard to know what the entire story is, but a lot of it has to do with insecurity. A lot of it has to do with being threatened or feeling threatened. I shouldn't say being threatened. A lot of it has to do with feeling threatened. And
you make up these feelings yourself, right?
Right.
They're self-generated feelings.
Right. And then, unless you learn to get perspective, which is another thing what the books are about, being able to step back or having people, family or friends, sort of calm you down and point out that these are just perceptions and not reality, it can lead you into darker and darker places.
I grew up as a foster kid. I know I never had a father, but I did have a mother. I knew who my mother was, and my brother and I would be there for a year, and then she'd drop us off for a year or 2 years, pick us back up. I mean, it was kind of a horrible childhood, and so I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of fears. I didn't trust anybody. I mean, it took me years to figure out how to trust somebody, and I still struggle with trust.
Right.
I put trust into somebody, and then they let me down, and then I write them off.
Sure, and that's really what this is about.
I really write people off. My wife says you've turned their picture over. Yep, I did, and I'm not real proud of that. But this goes to my own insecurities.
But we're all the sum total of our experiences, but again, it's all about perspective and understanding what our strengths are. That's another thing that Alexander learns over these 3 books, is that those very things that make him, in the beginning, feel odd or an outlier, to use the word, are actually his strengths. The things that make him feel, and most kids his age they're going to feel odd in one way or the other. And at some point, you either embrace that, or you let it devour you.
I'm holding up the book because all our shows are videoed. You can go to YouTube and type in Coach Ron Tunick or Business of Life or KHTS. Go to KHTS on YouTube and you can see I'm holding up the book. I love the titles. I mean, your creativity, Own the Scrawny. So that's the second book?
The second book. And the title relates to, in the end of the first book, My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain. Great title.
Thank you. I would just buy the book for the title, seriously. Great title.
From your mouth to the world's ears.
Yeah. Own the Scrawny. Well, sometimes it takes, I interviewed a guy about 8 years ago, wrote a book called The Average American, and I read the book. You can go and buy the book. He took a year off of his life and traveled around the country interviewing thousands of people. He was looking for that average person. What was the average American? That's what the book's about. I don't want to give it away. But I thought it was a great book. It took him, I stayed in touch with him. He was on my show many times. It took him like 5 years before he got discovered. Then he was on the Today Show and many others, and he sold thousands of books. He sold 4,000. I called him one day. I said, I saw you on the Today Show. He said, I sold 4,000 books just being on the Today Show. So you never know when you're going to get discovered, Rich Samuels.
Sure. Well, I'm working on it.
So Own This Scrawny, that's another interesting title. What is that about?
Well, okay, each of these books follow the other. In My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain, Alexander engineers a confrontation with somebody he perceives to be his enemy. And the result of that very public confrontation, and the person that he's confronting has no idea what's going on. Alexander perceives him as a bully and decides to confront him after school in front of everybody, thinking he's going to be the hero. And what transpires ends up being a very embarrassing scene, and that ends up on YouTube. And so he ends up being trolled, or getting comments on that video about about what a horrible person he is, and somebody calls him scrawny and a lot of other terms.
Right. You never want to be called scrawny. I'm wondering. My wife cannot. If Donald Trump comes on the TV, she has to leave the room. She cannot stand him. And I'm just listening to how you describe a bully. So Donald Trump could be perceived as a bully the way he presents himself, right?
Absolutely.
And this is why he's turning off, thousands and thousands of people that might ordinarily support him, because whether you like him or not, some of the things he says make sense, but his tactics of presenting himself come across as a bully.
Well, language means something. I mean, and how you talk about other people means something and has an impact. And I think a lot of people, we talk about bullying, a lot of people absorb that from their own perspective and their own life experience, and are not going to not going to consider anything coming from somebody who's using that kind of language that they may have experienced in their own life.
I think the biggest lie, Rich Samuels, was told to me by somebody. I don't want to mention who it was. They said, sticks and stones will hurt your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, that's a lie. Words can destroy you. Mm-hmm. They can absolutely destroy you. I can remember some great things some people have said to me, and I can remember some horrible things, and those horrible things stay with you.
Sure.
I wrote a book called The Thinking Room, and I talk about that we all have these files. So when you get a damaged file, like people bullying you, that file stays with you. How if you've been bullied, how do you get away from it? How do you obviously you would seek help, right? A lot of people can't afford $200 or $300 an hour to see a shrink. How did you overcome? Because you're a very successful businessman. How did you overcome the times that you were bullied? Well, you overcame your fears, actually.
Fears. It's more fears than bullying. I mean, I think looking back on it, I don't think I was ever as much bullied as being afraid of being bullied and being afraid of all these things that would happen. And like I said, at a certain point, you start to understand who you are. You start to understand what your strengths are, and you find friends that like you for who you are, and that enjoy your
Don't you have to like yourself first, though?
Yeah.
Don't you have to get in touch with yourself before other people are going to like you? I mean, if you don't like yourself, that comes across. I mean, you put that karma out there and other people can feel it, right?
Absolutely. Whether you're a kid or an adult, that is an ongoing...
It's interesting that we can't get a handle on this, that the schools, the parents, apparently this is going on all the time, and now, you've got cyberbullying, which is horrible.
Right.
And I've experienced it in my own family. I don't want to get into it, but cyberbullying, one text out there, it's not a good thing. And
well, yeah, like I said, words can. I mean, that's like I said. The second book is more about cyberbullying. The first one is about perception of real bullying, and the third book is about.
Well, okay, the third book's My Epic Life. So how does it turn out for Alexander?
Well, he
is kind of a scrawny kid.
Well, he's a scrawny kid. By the third book, he finally hits puberty. But he doesn't like calling it that because that he finds uncomfortable. So he calls it emotional and physical internal changes, which is epic. So
that's why you call it My Epic Life.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the reasons. So he basically learns. He's behind a lot of his friends physically, and now he's suddenly hitting this growth spurt, and all these things are starting to happen. But he's also has a friend who he befriends in the second book that has had problems with bullying, and he finds a way of helping.
I just talking to Rich Samuels, the author of this trilogy, My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain, Own the Scrawny, and My Epic Life, talking about bullying, really how to overcome your fears and anxieties, but very creative chapter names, The Worst Short Week. I love that. I mean, you're a creative dog. You're listening to The Business Life. I'm Coach Ron Tunick here on a fabulous radio station in Southern California, KHTS AM 1220. Download our app. Go to the App Store. Download it. It's a great app, and you can listen to your favorite show hosts or music all day long, and you can listen to us on hometownstation.com. Coming up in a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about one of our new sponsors. I Need a Sales Rep. There's money in sales. I mean, maybe more money in sales. Doctors don't make that much anymore. A real good salesman may make as much or more than the President of the United States. Really good salesmen make 3 and 4 times as much as the President of the United States. Sales is misunderstood. Every business, we were talking about before the show started, every business needs a salesperson. Every business needs a salesperson. Every business, but they can't find enough salespeople, and they can't find enough salespeople that are trained. So call this number. They will train you. 805, I'll go slow, it's 805 area code 358-6090. They will train you. They might even help you get a sales job too. All right, so the show is called The Business of Life, and we're talking about bullying. And really, the bullier is somebody who is not only scared to death about his own life, shallow, right, fearful, anxiety-ridden, but wants to somehow proves something, and he takes it out on somebody else.
Right.
And as you say in your book, there's all sizes of fishes, right? The big fish, the smaller fish. Alexander saw himself as a little fish.
He saw himself as a little fish, and as you said, you project what you feel about yourself, right? So, and he acts like he's a small fish, and as a result, his world spins out of control because of how he sees himself.
You know, one of the disgusting things about our culture is that we like packaging. So, you know, we like the person that's attractive, physically attractive, well-built. That's horrible. I mean, we pass up so many opportunities to build relationships and friendships because we just look at the outside package. It's horrible. I don't know how this whole thing got started, but we have to get away from judging people and looking at the color of their skin or their height or their weight. You know, people that are overweight, I'm overweight. And I struggle emotionally. I'm not really fat. I'm just a little bit overweight. But, you know, people who are really overweight are really in trouble with society. I see the way people look at other people that are actually, you know, 50 to 100 pounds overweight. It's horrible. It's like they won't even get within 10 feet of them.
Right.
Terrible.
Right. We tend to, in this society, judge people on surface appearance rather than,
which means nothing. It's like judging a book by its cover. Now your covers happen to be very attractive, and there's good stuff inside the book, but we need leadership, and I don't want to get into politics. Every once in a while I'll talk about politics, but you know, this is where, well, maybe I will say it. The President of the United States could do a better job of providing leadership, of talking to us. Remember, are you old enough to remember Franklin Delano Roosevelt? Too old, FDR. No. But he would have these fireside chats. How come we can't have fireside chats?
I don't know. Various presidents have tried that over the years. I think it's a different world. Maybe it needs to be virtual reality, where you're actually sitting there with the president and, you know, having a chat.
What about, I mean, can't famous people provide better leadership? They can, they don't, but they could. I mean, young people turn to what? Music, right? Music stars, Beyonce. Who do our age group turn to? Seriously, what is?
I don't know anymore. I mean, it's a difficult question. I mean,
sports stars.
And what does leadership mean these days either? I mean, you know, as well.
Well, that's a great question. Man, you asked. Rich Salmon is my very special guest, and he'll be back many times on the show we call The Business Life. I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about a little bit about what's going on with Donald Trump. You'll come back on the show?
Absolutely.
And you're going to do more research. We need to get into business together on this virtual reality, so you got to do your research.
Absolutely.
We'll keep talking about it. And also, we should talk about robots when you come back. You know, we're all going to have robots within 5 years. They're predicting robots.
You can also have them vacuum already.
No, I've already got my name picked out, Little Duke.
Yeah,
Duke,
Duke.
Go get me some tea. All right, we're going to come right back. I want to finish up talking a little bit about perception on the show we call The Business Life. I'll be right back. I'm your coach, Coach Ron Tunick. A little faster now. I'm your coach, Coach Ron Tunick, here with my pal, Rich Samuels, and the author of, we talked about his 3 books, talked about bullying, but now I want to talk about, well, we're kind of getting bullied, Rich. You know, when you look at Donald Trump, so he's representing 30, maybe 35, 36% of the Republicans. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I got no dog in this race. And then Bernie has got 35%. So there's 70% of a contingency that's angry, and both of these guys, you just said it a minute ago, both of these guys are breeding on fear, right? They're playing into this fear card.
Right.
They're coming from different directions, but the point is, people are unhappy, and they're unhappy. My take is there's been a lack of respect and a loss of respect for institutions. That institutions in some way have let us down. Now, intellectually, I get some of it. Some of it I don't get at all. I mean, when you look at our city, Santa Clarita, they do a great job. Right. For the most part. I mean, if you've got an issue, go down to City Hall and they'll talk to you. I mean, go up to the desk, they'll talk to you. Go to the city council meeting, get involved. So I'm wondering if the people that are complaining the loudest just aren't involved. They're not involved in something, and I don't get it. Do you get it?
I think a part of it is the perception that's being presented. Fear sells, and they're not. No one's going to say things are kind of okay, but they could be better. That's not very sexy in an advertising using.
Well, people are not getting raises. Let me
Right.
say there's some accuracy here. So
Sure, no, I'm not saying
so
it isn't, but-
production is way off. A lot of businesses are barely making it. Small businesses are barely making it, and the big businesses are dominating the landscape. We
Sure.
talked about it, but there's a reason they're down. The reason they're dominating the landscape is because they have a variety of products. I mean, you go into a Costco store, it's kind of fun. There's always new products in there. The prices are decent. Same with Walmart. So these big box stores, you can buy everything on Amazon. So how do you compete? How does a small entrepreneur business owner compete? I mean, I'm worried about us.
Sure.
And so that's why you and I were talking about virtual reality. There's new industries, ladies and gentlemen, opening up. And this is where, if you're a parent, you need to get your kids involved in these new industries, right?
Right, the new industries. I mean, that's how you look at the history of the computer business. It started out with these small boutique
Yes,
companies.
exactly.
Apple started in a garage. That's the old traditional,
Yeah.
the old legend, and that's what's happening with a lot of the virtual reality
So
businesses.
negativity doesn't work for me. This
No.
is a great country. There's still a tremendous amount of opportunity. And turn off the television. Look, both coasts are a little different. L.A., Southern California, New York, I get it. San Francisco, I get all that. But, the rest of the country, it's pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty darn good here, right here in Southern California on KHTS AM 1220. You're listening to the show called The Business of Life. And we need positive leaders. We need people to encourage us to go out and invest in this new technology, robots, virtual reality, right?
Right, absolutely.
New ways of educating, new ways of entertainment. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there, but our leaders aren't talking about that. They're feeding into whatever fears we have, right?
Right, and I think it's across the board to not to place it one area or another. I mean, I think that there's again, it pays for the opposition. Now, in this case, we have two. We have everybody's. There is no incumbent, so everyone's the opposition, and it pays to be as dark and as dire as possible.
Right, and this is a cheap plug for I Need a Sales Rep, but their phone number is 805-358-6090. But they will train you. Every business needs a sales rep. So here's an industry that's underserved. If every business in America, and you need a sales rep, right?
Definitely.
So every business needs a great sales rep. Every business. So here's an industry that's underserved that nobody's talking about. And there's a very bad perception of sales. Sales today isn't what it was 30, 40 years ago. Sales is about communicating, marketing, having a conversation with people. It's not about beating people over the head and trying to manipulate or maneuver them. It's about learning how to have a conversation and creating a culture in which the buyer says, you know what? I want to do business with you, coach. I want to do business with your salesperson. I want to do business with your company. You create that by your demeanor, by what you say, by how you say it, by when you say it. So sales is a great opportunity for people to change their lives and to make money.
Right, and it's a lot more complicated sales in general and diverse than it used to be.
Well, sure, because now we have social media that
Right.
comes into play. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I always love having you on. You're one of the smartest guys here in Southern California. His name is Rich Samuels. If you just tuned in late, he wrote a trilogy of great books. His first book, My Life at the Bottom of the Food Chain, talking about Alexander and his journey through overcoming bullying. A second book, Own the Scrawny, and the third book, My Epic Life. So you got to come back, pal. Appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to
I'm
it.
keeping these books right here. The show is called The Business Life. We talk a little bit about life. We talk about business. Sometimes we talk about sports. Sometimes we talk about cars. Today we talked about virtual reality. It's probably going to be the future of how we're educated. It's going to be the future of how we train people. And it's interesting, when you see, why do you think Facebook now has gone to live video? Video is what appeals to our senses, Rich. And we will look at a video before. It's sad we won't read books anymore. Our age group reads books, but young people, need the 140 characters, or they live on their smartphone, but they will look at videos, right?
Right.
So that's why virtual reality is going to be a great future for our country. And get your kids involved in these new industries. We're going to see you soon down the road on the show we call The Business Life here at KHTS AM 1220, and on hometownstation.com.